Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is September's MCC monthly meeting. I apologize, I have my video off because I have really bad internet at the moment. Gonna start with the just read-only agenda items. Just want to give a quick update for the light hotspots with HIP 70 passing. The tentative date is for the Oracle completion for November, so we're looking at towards the end of the year for light hotspots. There is a link in there with some of the information that has been sent out to the manufacturers. And because of this, we're looking at pausing the hardware audits specifically for light hotspots for the month of October. Just because we already have several in the pipeline, and some of the radio certifications have already been reviewed and approved for that. Any questions that anybody has about that? Okay, all right. Moving along, the first agenda item is for MCC getting some new members. We have the charter that we were looking at making some updates for. Just want to kind of start off that topic if anybody has any thoughts.
What does our charter recommends that members currently stay for 2 years?
Yes. And I believe that we kind of touched base on this last month about limiting the role to 1 year, and that I think Nick was the person who suggested that we not have more than 11 members as the maximum.
Right. Just for housekeeping, should we update our charter?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think we
just
should.
to reflect what we're thinking.
Yep. Okay. I'm gonna take that as for me. I'm volunteering to do that. Yeah, that's why I asked. It's because if it doesn't go there with my name, I will forget to do it.
Okay, so we'll just make that an action item. I'm going to put it in the notes here that Sophie's going to edit it, and then if everybody can take a look at it so that we can kind of make changes as need be. Unless anybody, go ahead.
Oh, Christina, go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead. I was just going to ask if anybody had anything else on that.
Just where I'm looking at it right now, and it says MCC members may serve indefinitely unless they are removed or resigned. I'm just going to add, it is recommended that members cycle yearly. That's all I have.
Yep, I'll jump in here. I think we updated a fair amount of this after last time. I'm not sure how many folks have looked at this. I know everyone is ultra busy. One thing I want to make sure that we hit sooner rather than later, just because he's expressed interest in making it happen here on the calls, is getting a new chair in to replace Jeremy. So I don't know how we want to do that as far as putting forward a motion, but I know that kind of informally we've talked about either Patrick or Brad moving up there. Before I kind of kick that process off, Patrick, I should probably check with you. Is that something that you'd be willing to do?
At this point, I would be willing, but I can't fit it into all my other responsibilities, unfortunately.
Got it. And then we don't know
we just don't have Patrick here because he's
Brad. Yeah, we don't have Brad here.
Sorry, Brad.
Okay, well, we'll see once he gets sorted out with the hurricane where he gets. But I think that's a reasonably high priority item. We don't want someone on the committee that doesn't want to be here or doesn't have the ability to put forth the time to do it. So good.
Yeah, just with that in mind, I believe we have some members who haven't been able to make meetings for a while. Perhaps leader to perhaps contact those folks and see if they indeed want to stay.
Yep, totally. It's a great. You dropped out a little bit, Sophie. I'm not sure if I'm dropping out as well, but what I heard was we should have someone, I'm guessing it's Christina, reach out to the folks who haven't been on the meeting for a while and see if they want to continue. Yeah, see if they want to continue on the committee. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can definitely do that. I have actually already done that with one person, but I just haven't heard back. So
Okay, and maybe we put something like an uno dir, like an otherwise, unless otherwise directed thing in the email, like, hey, if I don't hear back from you in 2 weeks, I'm going to assume that you no longer have an interest in serving on the committee.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
In our charter, it says that members who miss more than 2 meetings per quarter, we may vote to remove. And I think in the interest, of course, it's not super nice to vote to remove anybody. I'm not really in favor of that, but we do have many members, like we have 5 qualified new members who we may want to bring on. So yeah, I think it makes sense to find those 11 members who actually want to be here and who have the time.
Yeah. Do we want to look at voting on the folks who've applied so far? And we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 folks here. Out of the 8, Keenan is not on the committee, and yeah, he's got seven folks here. I think the minimum that we're looking at for the committee is 9. So we do need some new blood. And if we're going to push someone up into chair, we want to make sure that they've got enough time on the committee that we can get them in there. And maybe we make an exception after a couple months if someone's super fired up and comes in to do it there. But I don't want to kick this can down the road. I think we've been doing that for a couple months and that's not working.
There's an email that I would encourage everybody to respond to that lists all the people, has links. I'll find it and resend it out, but I feel that we should do that kind of voting, not publicly here in this meeting. And also we still need to we need to vote on who we want to talk to. Who do we want? It's Thursday.
You're breaking up, Sophia.
Let me turn my video off. Apologies. I have no hurricane here, but somehow my internet is always terrible. I would propose that there is an email thread that lists the people who have applied to be on the MCC. We need to interview all of them. I would propose that everybody respond to that email by Monday, end of day.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Yeah,
And then how are we
approved.
keeping track of who's responded so that we know who to hound and make sure we follow up with them?
Either I or Christina can
Check.
follow up.
Check.
Just
So
on
what did we resolve to do by Monday? I'm just writing down.
to respond, there's an email that lists the 5 people that have applied and suggests at least 2 of us have responded with suggestions of which of those 5 people we want to interview. So by Monday, everyone could respond to that email saying yes or no to interviewing those people. Then we can move forward with perhaps interviewing everybody next week.
Got it.
There are also some observer from, say, I think from Bobcat and another company from Seed that are interested in joining. So we definitely have a lot of interest right now of sort of movement. And as Nick put it, let's not kick the can down the road anymore.
Right on. So we should have that sorted by Monday. We'll schedule some interviews, get some new folks in here, and yeah, have something done by the end of October. Seems like semi-reasonable.
Get the blood pumping.
All right, that all sounds great. Thank you, everybody. The next agenda item is that this has come up a few times. We did briefly discuss this last month, but it seems to be a more ongoing issue, is that makers are running out of onboarding credits. And there's no process for this, and this kind of might fall out of the scope of the MCC, but I think when we discussed it on the last call, it was that it was only an issue if there was no onboarding credits available over like a period of like several days into like a week. But I think that has happened with a few makers where it's been, a week or longer that there's no onboarding credits.
Yeah, so I have a way to kind of phrase this, and I think we should use that as a metric or as a sign that a maker might be derelict and just gone. And for that reason, that's why we should get involved if it happens continuously, because we might need to disable their key for security reasons, because it means that they may have left it somewhere and they're not interested anymore. So it's definitely something we should keep track of and bug them, in the sort of proof of life thing I think we've talked about, whatever we've called it before. So I propose that we just send them an official message to their contact and say, what is up? Please respond to let us know that you are still active. If you don't, we may turn off the key, your onboarding key, for security reasons. So we'd be cool with that.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
think so. What is the, I guess, like how many days, is there like a limit where that email we should be sending?
I have no idea.
I would
Anybody
say
wanna-
a week.
Yeah.
Tops.
Yeah.
3 days to a week. More than that, it's already too much. And right now I'm looking at the makers data. We have like half a dozen with 0 onboardings or close to it. So it's worrying.
I would
Uh,
also,
Go, Sophie.
I would just also propose just accept it
Sophie?
be, say, Keenan or one of the community. Yeah, you can't hear me? Can you hear me?
It's
We can
cutting
now,
up
but
here.
it drops out in inopportune moments.
I would recommend that the person to do the contacting be one of the foundation community managers, and Keenan is the MCC community manager. Like what I did there, Keenan. I'm moving rooms. Is this better?
Yes,
Yes.
it's been solid so far.
Okay. Yeah, I would just say, just from a logistics standpoint, Christina's got a lot on her plate, and it probably should be a foundation employee with the foundation email that contacts the maker, and the community managers are already getting involved with makers for all kinds of things.
Yeah, that's totally fine by me. As long as we, as a group, sort of are behind it.
I'm happy to help.
Another thing that was brought up, too, is in the POC security working group, which happened, their meeting was just 30 minutes before this, and they might still actually be talking. I did show up there, talk with them, and they offered a suggestion that we could put in a system in place to kind of automatically do this. If the DC credits get to 0 and stay there for a long time, that their API access to the onboarding server gets locked and then has to be reinstated. This is not the same as suspending the key, but prevents them from onboarding records as a security measure. That way, if someone does get a hold of their API key for that server, it prevents mass uploading of records and chaos. But that does require coding, someone to code that, perhaps making Nova do that. But that is a possibility too that can be added as like a backup measure. Maybe we could put that on like a 2-week timer or something, so that if it is at 0 continuously for 2 weeks, raises an alarm.
Jeremy, just
protect
one
us.
minor detail. It's not if the query should not be if the DC is at 0. It should be if the DC is below the necessary amount to do one onboarding, because
Sure.
they have some DC,
Yeah.
but like for 100,000, it's not enough to do an onboarding.
Exactly. Not a problem there. Because it's a suggestion and it's the thing that we can't control. It's sort of like a, hey, you go do this on our behalf. It's a hard ask to do, but it's something that we could decide to do. But I think for this, just simply having the process of manually sending out the note, keeping track, it's enough to do for now.
Agree. Do we vote?
Why don't we, officially vote on whether, on the 5 days, the email goes out when we notice it, and we kind of decide what that means, but they have 5 days to respond. Is that okay with everyone? That's what I'm proposing.
Yep, I vote in favor.
Yep. Vote
Yes.
yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
can't see any.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. You can just say yes.
Yes.
Doesn't have to make sense. Okay, I think that passes enough with our quorum here. And again, the consequences of not responding to that after 5 days is we lock out their API key. It's not necessarily the same as suspending. They can still do onboards if someone magically puts DC in there, but they cannot insert new records into the server. All right. Is that enough to move on? The next thing is PyCom.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Cool. So
If,
I don't know if
on the
anybody's
PC
seen.
onboards, if there's a chance to give them a notification that they're trending toward that before it's the mission critical, you're at below 1.
There certainly is. I would say, come on, you're running a business. You should have
I
business
think
queries.
they should be the ones to monitor it themselves.
Yeah. Burden should
Is
be
it
on them
just
to do it,
us
right?
going and
You're
hey,
right. You're all right.
I mean,
I
we
like
could
it,
human
change
James.
it, but
behavior.
it's going to
I
be.
think we got to make sure that the folks who are participating in the network feel that there is a responsibility to act like a responsible adult or someone
an
running a
adult.
business. And if we start, like, I really like the idea, but if we start just kind of putting all these paddings and cushions in, we're just enabling kind of, I don't know, weakness throughout the network versus just saying, hey, if you're here, come and crush. If you're not crushing, get out.
Exactly. I call that capitulating to lameness.
There you go.
Cool. I like the basic idea, but it's going to have to be done manually by someone, and we're already overloading. So we can definitely put into like the requested things that would be nice to have to automate. But I think we're okay with it really being the responsibility. And if we notice it, we will email. So PyCom, I don't know if anyone's seen that. There's been rumors that they're bankrupt based on a Twitter posting and some public releases in the UK. I guess by UK law, if you declare bankruptcy or are about to, you, of course, just like the US as well, but they call it administration. So if anybody's seen anything that says they're under administration, if you are from the US side of things, that's the same thing as bankruptcy, declaring bankruptcy. So we have sent them an email to their contact to say, what's up? Are you guys still in the business? And Christina, you got a response saying that they're going to respond?
Yeah, so what the email response was, they looped in another person and said that they had more details and could explain the situation. So I don't actually have an answer for that as of yet.
But we will have to decide if they do say, yeah, we're kind of done, or no one responds. We should go the route of figuring out how to spin them down, stopping the key, and revoking it. This will be it'll be a new territory of dealing with this. Will be a first. But we should be thinking about it. It's possible they could reply and say, yeah, well, we're going through restructuring and we're selling off this and this, but we're keeping the hotspot portion. Someone is still managing that. That's a possibility they could answer. Who knows?
and one question that has to be asked, I don't know who will be able to answer, if them or we'll have to find an answer. It's what will happen to the over 500 gateways from PyCom that are on the system. Is there are they planning to phase out the updates to any other manufacturer? Do they have something planned, or will we have to try to support these members of the community finding an alternative?
That kind of dovetails into, should we have the longer term, having a bounty system or deposit system to cover these where someone can step in. From what I believe, PyCom fortunately uses Raspberry Pis. And those are easy for another manufacturer to take over. I could be wrong, but that is definitely the longer term conversation. Like, what do we do to give those? Fortunately, it's only 500 of them. Hopefully that will not be a huge burden. But we have to get to the point where they officially declare that, yeah, they won't be supporting something before we'd even go there, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think I'll bring this back to the MCC on Discord as soon as I get a reply.
Cool.
Okay. I think, Jeremy, did you want to talk about this next stuff?
Yeah.
With the 5G stuff? Okay.
All right. So as you've all seen, 5G sub-DAO is rapidly expanding. There's a few things going on there that we're going to have to get involved with, mostly just process things. And that is, I think I can go on video. One, the HIP 19 requirements for 5G, they're going to have to be different than for LoRaWAN. It's going to be absolutely required that all 5G gateways be secure boot. meaning that the firmware has to be written by the manufacturer. They have to control it and make certain it cannot be tampered with. The secure element on the gateway should only be accessible from that secure software. And this is going to mean that, for example, the ECC 5608, that can't fit into such a system. That thing can sign requests from anybody. And so if we really need attestation where the secure element can only be accessed by approved software by the manufacturer, things like that aren't going to fly. So I think Sophie and I were talking about this earlier. We're going to try to write out a sort of questionnaire that will extend HIP-19 for 5G for other manufacturers, make certain they're adhering to this. There's a lot of reasons why we need that too. Thinking through what carriers are going to do with the CBRS spectrum if we want to appear as neutral hosts and allow any carrier to use it. Some of them are going to have concerns for their customers. They're not going to let traffic from the customers flow through a gateway that could potentially sniff it or snarf it and mess with it. I know some carriers are really concerned about that. And the only way to really do that well is to have secure boot. I see Jameson nodding. He's talked about this. And so we really need to get on that and spell that out so people don't start applying and then discovering, oh my goodness, this whole design we've made is not adequate. So
just to support that, even as a non-voting member, the only carrier that has agreed to do offloading to date, at least publicly, is doing significant penetration testing and expressed concerns. So secure boot is a kind of a basic necessity.
Cool.
I'm glad that the MCC agrees.
Yeah, well, I hope we all agree. I'm going to write it up so we can really all see it. But I'm certainly, we all really do have to agree as the stewards of the HIP-19 process. It's going to fall on us. So definitely bring people in if you really aren't convinced. But there's another area that we do need to talk about, which is the model that we have for onboarding really assumes a gateway is in charge. But there are possibilities for that to not necessarily be so. And what does that really mean? Well, if you look at the 5G model right now, you get some 5G radios and you attach them to a gateway, also known as an AGW. You'll start hearing that term a lot more. And then you onboard that AGW onto the blockchain and you get rewards based on your radios. Well, there's an opportunity to have radios connect straight to a manufacturer's gateway that is not on premises, meaning it's like a cloud. So you just simply set up the radio at your location, plug it into internet, and it connects to a gateway in a cloud service provider that's run by the manufacturer of your radio or your third-party integrator. For consumers, that's a big win. We should definitely support that. But it changes the model of what exactly goes on the chain, who gets the rewards, how do we onboard, things like that. Should that become a data-only hotspot? How does the manufacturer get rewarded for the firmware, for maintaining this cloud presence, right? It is a cost now that it's not on the consumer. So we have to start thinking about that and the audit requirements for that. And more importantly, too, there's possibility to do Wi-Fi offloading of 5G to allow people in areas that are not CBS countries. Meaning, if you're outside the US, we could support something like Wi-Fi 6 offloading and allowing people to host Wi-Fi 6 gateways at their locations of the houses in really good spots to do carrier offloading onto the Helium 5G network. And we're going to need to have like an audit standard for that. Sophie and I both have more information what that would look like, but we do need to be able to approve that. Have vendors who want to just do Wi-Fi 6 for 5G, come up with units like that, have a standard for auditing them so they can get approved and get onto the network. So these are big things that are going to they're all under HIP-19, but we all need to understand them and be in charge of auditing them. Time for questions about that?
Yeah, what is the expertise that we need on the committee to audit that? And if we don't have it, this goes back to the new members, like who do we bring in that can do that, especially as the membership changes?
Yeah, well, we have Sophie from Foundation as our official auditor. I'm certain she can handle it unless she's got requirements say that she can't. But we do need to come up with like the standards, the questionnaire for it. So I don't think the auditing of it's going to be, especially for that Wi-Fi, is not going to be very arduous at all, because it's a rather simple thing. It's all a self-contained unit.
Got it. What are the questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sophie.
Just to sort of process things. Jeremy, I just set up a time for us, like starting next week. We can just recur it every week until we're done. So we're going to write up this secure boot process or questionnaire. And we're also going to work on the HIP 19 addendum. I think this is another agenda item for 5G. But yeah. To answer your question about the audit process, if just as with the LoRaWAN, I had a lot of help from Lewis and Jeremy to get started. I don't do this in a vacuum. Every audit is approved, and everyone also is welcome to sit in on any audit that I'm doing. And anyone here or on the security group, and people do from time to time.
But I think we as a group will have to approve that questionnaire, that process. We should officially all be in on it, understand how it works, and vote on it and say, yep, this is the process for these items.
Got it. Who writes the questionnaire?
I'll probably do at least for the secure boot
Okay.
and the Wi-Fi 6. Since I've got the time, I'm volunteering.
And the more knowledge than the rest of us.
Right, for these particular sticky points, sure.
Yep. And then what other questions do we need to ask? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to drink from the fire hose here.
Yeah, no, I know it's drinking virus. I don't know. What other questions do you need to ask me?
No, sorry. So what other questions need to be on that questionnaire? So you said you would do kind of two aspects of that, but the way you said it made it seem to me like there might be some more questions we need to
I see.
Put in there.
Well, look, I'm going to write up the secure boot requirement questionnaire, which covers all the things that we're concerned about in order to get the high assurance for several things. So it's a complicated thing, but we do have the existing questionnaire for alternate security models, and that seems to have been going really well. So I'm going to use the same thing for the secure boot part, and I'll show it to everyone. The Wi-Fi 6 is a separate one, but it will start. It has to be secure boot, and they're just going to simply have to demonstrate during the audit process.
Yeah, it builds on the secure boot one. Yeah.
Yeah. So any 5G gateway is definitely going to have secure boot. That's going to have to be demonstrated as a bare minimum. If you're CBRS gateway, then you're kind of done. You have to show the CBRS integration for the radios. But if you're Wi-Fi 6 gateway, you just have to show, since the radio is on board, I think it's just showing that it will be configured correctly for the country it's destined to, the same way we do for the LoRa packet forwarder by reviewing the forward. And if we think it's appropriate, maybe have it do some radio tests. We don't have a whole lot of equipment to do that. Maybe we can rely on their FCC or ETSI, their standards body report, to show that the radio does work at the right levels. Oh, one more thing in there. They're going to have to show that they integrate with, that they have a Magma core back end. The vendor will have to run some infrastructure and show that they are going to maintain that. Is everyone aware of the HIP 70 flow, by the way, or the HIP actually 51 5G?
5153. I mean, it's pretty rough, but my understanding it was pretty rough. Yeah.
Getting to know that flow chart and seeing, and because vendors have to run significant portions of the Magma software on their own to support all the gateways, it's an important part too of the auditing requirement to show not only to the hardware they're shipping is going to be compliant, but that they are committed to maintaining the back end. It's a lot,
and that needs a lot of resources.
Not just and resources that they kind of need to get paid for. They cost money to do. And so if you look at the HIP 53 model, manufacturers can take a portion of the earnings, and they have to publish it beforehand. And I think it's our job to make them stick to whatever that is that they publish. And they get a portion of the mobile rewards for the gateway for running the back-end services. I don't think that's in effect for right now for any of them, but that's in the plan if you look at what was passed for HIP 53. And we need to be aware of it, and that's going to have to be part of the auditing for 5G as well.
I just want to add that some of this the infrastructure part. Some of this will be performed separately. Currently, it's by Freedom Fi, but I imagine eventually the foundation will take that on.
Yeah.
But we just haven't done any yet. So we need their expertise.
So it kind of dumped a few things on you. One was secure boot, and the other is his process of auditing the infrastructure of a maker. Questions about that? Probably not. Probably too stunned to keep going.
I'm looking for the links, actually. We do have a sort of very loose audit process written up, but there is a process. And I want to post the link.
Fortunately, it hasn't been enacted, right? Because you just have one manufacturer who's
Yes.
highly integrated with the system now. But as we open it up under the HIP 19 ethos, we have to really spell out what it means so anybody can apply, as long as they got the right resources.
Yeah, and that's certainly the goal too, is, you know, to get to a place where we can do that.
All right. And then there's a small semi-hidden elephant off in the corner of the room, and that Pollen is already doing this gateway-less radio. So we can probably learn from what they're doing, just like they've learned from Helium. But just making sure that we're kind of pulling from all available resources, public and private.
And I might get the acronym wrong. If anybody wants to read up more on it, I think this is called MOCN. Jameson, am I pronouncing that right?
I
that
do
maybe
not know.
it's separate initiative. Okay. And this again means a gateway-less radio deployment, meaning you host the 5G CBRS eNode B or CBSD, if you really want to get acronym heavy, and it plugs straight into the internet, and you don't have to put up any more equipment in your location to participate.
I need to do more homework on this. There are advantages to running the core locally, and for redundancy, for scalability, for true decentralization, but I need to do homework on the Helium's plans to, the community's plans to embrace a gateway-less architecture.
Yeah, you know, we'll definitely need community input and some higher level thinking about the rewards for it. You know, does it get the same rewards because it's a little bit less reliable, or is it more reliable in certain aspects? I don't think we have to worry about that too much, but we should be prepared to, you know, the auditing and approval for it. It's going to be on us. And so we
it's
posted
also,
the MLC and stuff.
I'm curious how the radios become secure.
Yeah, we'll probably, I mean, when it comes down to it, we'll probably require the radio manufacturer to be audited in some way to show that the firmware they're running will run the TR069, which is the process which Gateway boots up and talks to its core. Make certain that has some sort of security in it so that you can't just let it attach anywhere, and that the traffic it's passing is also encrypted for the carrier perspective. That will be part of it for certain.
Okay, takeaway. A lot of complicated stuff going on. Jeremy's going to lead the initial charge, and then we'll have to figure out the rest of it.
Exactly.
Okay. What's next?
I'm looking here. We've kind of gone over everything in the agenda.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, way to crush, team.
We all set?
Yeah, I
Any
think we're all
last
good.
items that needed to be brought up?
I shot off an
50
email in
minutes.
response to the email everyone's looking for, so that should be in your inbox. And then I put a Google Sheet tracker to make it easy to look at the new members and who we should or should not vote on. Some of them are just complaints and garbage, but most of them we should look at. So just take some time. It should be pretty easy, but I'd like to reiterate that I don't want to get to November or October and be like, hey, what are we doing with the MCC thing? Because it's been 2 or 3 months now, and I know there's other important stuff to do, but let's fix that.
Is some of that queue also some potential auditors?
Yeah, totally.
People, non-voting. Cool.
And there's at least one voting guy who'd probably be an excellent auditor in there. So, but yeah, check it out.
Cool. I will commit to doing that. Everyone remember to go
Likewise.
through that and nominate people who we want to actually interview.
Sounds great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Have a good rest of your day.
See you online.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.